Hello, everybody. Jan Rutherford here with Self-Reliant Leadership. This is number 3 in a series of 13 sessions we're doing that is based on the book that we've got coming out here very soon, Becoming a Self-Reliant Leader, right in front of my face. And today, I've got a really, really special guest today, a good friend of mine by the name of Waldo Waldman. And if I'm sure most of you have heard of Waldo. Waldo is a best-selling author. He's a Hall of Fame speaker. I think there's only 200 in the whole country. He was an F-16 pilot back in the day and transitioned into sales. And he really helps audiences and executives and teams of all sorts break performance barriers, overcome obstacles, and build cultures of collaboration, courage, and trust. And his motto is nobody flies solo. And I was fortunate that Waldo agreed to participate in one of our Crucible expeditions way back in 2018 in the Wallowa Mountains of Oregon, and was instrumental in sharing a lot of his wisdom, not only with the team, but in videos that were recorded out there. And I've learned a lot from Waldo over the years, and I'm really, really glad to have him as part of the show today. So Waldo, welcome.
Great to be here, Jan.
Yeah, well, good. Well, what did I always say on the podcast? Hey, what's not in the public bio? What is it about you that might not be easily found on social media?
Well, look, we just talked about it before. Nobody's perfect. I just went through stem cell treatment in South America. I'm kind of a biohacker in some area. I don't like going under the gun. I think health and diet and fitness and being relevant as you get older. I just turned 56 a couple of weeks ago and still feel great, but I had a really bad issue with my knee, meniscus, flying jets, compressed spine, lower back issues, ankle issues. So I did the whole full meal deal, and I'm kind of been hurting the last couple of days, but I'm doing a lot better. But the point is, as you get older, to be relevant, to be more mission ready and confident with your skills as a leadership consultant, as a speaker, as a father, sometimes you got to step out of your comfort zone and do something differently. So that's what I did, and just trying to stay relevant and keep pushing up the throttle.
Yeah, there you go. And I'm I'm glad you're doing well. And in what country was that?
It was in Colombia, Medellin. Medellin. So, and we're going to talk about preparation. And I did a lot of due diligence and research, and, the confidence you build when you prepare allows the experience to go a lot better. And I was thoroughly impressed. The healthcare system was fantastic. The patient care, the advocacy was amazing. There were some other issues with the whole process, just because it's not America, but in general, my trepidation was very, very significantly reduced once I met the folks and got a chance to be embedded into their healthcare system. So don't be bashful. Just do your due diligence.
Yeah. Well, these days you've definitely got to be your own advocate when it comes to your health.
100%.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm really glad you're here. I can't believe you're 56. You still look youthful. And I know you work hard at taking care of yourself, which is a big part of leadership. And as I said before, we were fortunate to have you on our Wallowa Mountain Crucible. We called it the Sacagawea Crucible because we were trying to be diverse and have a diverse team. And there was a Sacagawea Peak there. And it was just a really great experience. And it was a big group. There were 17 of us on that one.
Right.
But kind of going back to the book that I wrote with my co-author, Jackie Jordan, who you know as well, a wonderful co-author. We really tried to take all those crucible experiences and say, what happens on every one of them? And with every one of them, there are phases, but based on the group dynamic, it's always different. It's always a little different. But after 10 plus years of doing them, 24 crucibles, we said, there's a lot of business lessons in there. And what we tried to do is tell stories from the crucible that were interesting and fun, and how that relates to the business world. And in this chapter, what I wanted to talk to you about is the whole idea of preparation and being squared away. And I use that term a lot, be squared away. And I thought that was just a familiar term. And, as I was working with editors and publishers and agents, they're like, what's this whole thing, be squared away? What's that all about? And I was just like, gosh, I can't believe that's not, normal vernacular. That might be a little bit of military, but you as a fighter pilot, the fact that you're 56 and you're still here, goes to the point of, there's bold pilots and there's old pilots, but there's no old bold pilots that,
Yeah.
That you really prepared and made sure that for every takeoff you had a landing.
Yeah, well, coming from a Green Beret, that's a big deal. But look, I always say wingmen never wing it. You can't lead by the seat of your pants. You can't sell by the seat of your pants. You can't do anything by the seat of your pants if you want to excel.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I talk about in my book, Never Fly Solo, and in my speeches and consulting is, hey, you have to build trust with your team. But I also believe that being that trusted partner has to first start with the man or woman staring back at you when you salute that Top Gun in the mirror and get ready to strap to the cockpit and go to battle every single day and serve and do your job and be a great parent or consult or coach, whatever it is that you do. And so when you understand that the most important trusted partner is yourself, that in order for you to have others to depend on, you must be the person that's dependable. You must be the one that others can say the three most important words in business and life, which are I need help. Mayday, mayday. And if your team, your leaders, your peers, your family members, your loved ones can't come to you for help and feel confident that you'll deliver on that solution, then you're not a wingman or a wingman. You can't be that trusted partner. So preparation first has to start with the individual. And I also believe it's not just the things we do inside the cockpit, the technology, the tools, the tactics, right? But it's also the things that are outside the cockpit, our environment, our relationships, our health and fitness, the things that we put in our head and our eyes. So preparation has to be very, very holistic. It can't just be tactical, and it just can't be job oriented. There's a lot of variables that go into building that confidence.
Yeah. I often think, as I prepare in the morning, whether it's, eating a good breakfast, working out, sometimes, alone time, it might feel selfish, but I mean, it really is not selfish at all, because it's preparing yourself so that you can be your best. You can put your best foot forward to everyone, sort of a sense of duty, if you will. Don't you think?
It's a sense of duty, which is coincident with another important word that is underused these days, which is responsibility. And so you asked me to go on this crucible with you, and I knew it would take some preparation. I'm not a Green Beret or a Navy SEAL. We had some special forces folks there, and I'm like, I'm just a very, sophisticated cockpit guy. I don't get my hands dirty. I'm not climbing. So I'm like working this $30 million F-16, which is behind me, right? But I do like health and fitness and sports and being put in challenging positions. But part of my trepidation was I haven't been in these environments. So you helped prepare me. I needed to learn what were the tools that I needed. How can I prepare? We had our pre-calls with our team. Hey, getting to know each other. You've done this before. We were climbing mountains. What's the gear that we needed? All those things that would mentally, either consciously or subconsciously, build that confidence so that I wouldn't wing it. Knowing that if I were to lead in this group and contribute, if I was the weak link, showing up unprepared, number one, how much would I be emulating what it takes to be a fighter pilot or a soldier serving? Number two, how could I be an asset and a contributor to a team if I didn't do the hard work up front? So we have to sweat. We have to do the sacrifice and know that we must be responsible for ourselves and others, which is going to take a little bit of work and sacrifice, right?
Yeah. Well, I remember when you came on the Crucible, I mean, one of the things that's easy to do is to think, hey, everybody's, half the team are veterans. They know what to do. I could assume that.
Right.
But, and as you know, I mean, assumptions can get you in trouble, both in the military and in the civilian world.
Right.
Any thoughts, stories there about maybe in a time or two that you made an assumption and it's like, it got you.
Yeah, well, some people might see me, I'm kind of lean and mean and whatever. I'm pretty muscular and stuff, but I was still struggling with some knee issues back then as well. I'm in pretty good shape, but I'm not used to, uh, going through the woods with a 50 or 80 pound pack on my back, climbing mountains like you and Josh and some of the other folks that were there. So people were like, oh, Waldo's in pretty good shape. But no, I had to be like, okay, what is my limitation? What do I need to be not just confident in, but also to be transparent and vulnerable, saying, look, man, hey, I'm good at certain things, guys and gals, but I can't do this. We need to slow down. Let's get our ego out of the way.
Yeah.
And know when to subjugate my ego or my sense of responsibility, say, hey, maybe I need to delegate this to someone else. So part of preparation is to know your strengths, but also to know your weaknesses and outsource them to a trusted partner who you invested a relationship in, to be able to say, I don't know, or I can't do that, or I need help. So that also marinates the stake of the relationship with the rest of the folks in that group to say, you know what, I am pretty weak in this area too. And if Waldo or a Navy SEAL or Ranger could say that they're not prepared or may not feel confident, then maybe that civilian, the CFO from a Fortune 500 company who's in our group, may need to say, well, I can't do this either. Because if you assume and you start pushing your limitations, you're going to get hurt, and you're going to be a detriment and a weak link to that rest of the group.
Yeah, and you mentioned a number of things about vulnerability, and I think this would be a good time to show the video that I recorded in Dominguez Canyon in Western Colorado, and that really focuses on preparation. So I'm going to show this video, and then we'll come back, and again, any questions that anyone has, just throw them in the comments, and we'll follow up right here.
Sweet.
Here we go. When we start on the hike, we're going to put our first leaders are going to be Ben, and your second in command, if you will, is going to be Pierce.
So my expectation is we're going to go for like 20 minutes. Yeah, we're going to go like 20 minutes, take a little break, catch up with everybody. Super. And then, we'll kind of assess from there. Does that sound good? Everybody
Perfect.
Feel okay with that?
Preparation with regard to coming and attending a crucible is absolutely critical. And it's imperative on the leader to make sure that people are prepared physically, mentally, and emotionally.
So I planned on stopping fairly quickly to kind of regroup and make sure everybody felt good. And it was during that little gap of 20 or 30 minutes from the time we left the trailhead that I realized, like, this is my chance to make sure I do everything I can to get this team to get to know each other. As I'm walking, I'm thinking about like stuff that's working really well in my life, stuff that I'm struggling with, either work-wise or personal-wise. So I'd love the next time we stop if anybody's willing to like say, hey, here's something I'm really proud of at work, or maybe here's something I'm struggling with, here's something I need to work more on, or something personal that's going on. So I'll start here since I've been thinking about it. My dad passed away like 2.5 weeks ago, and literally one of my best friends. So as I do this kind of stuff, he was the guy that I did this stuff with all the time. So every step I'm thinking about the guy out here. So I'm dealing with that. He was a great guy, a good person to follow in the footsteps of. The vulnerable part, like it just happened kind of in the moment, but I really wanted to get everybody talking, and so I thought, I'll give everybody a couple topics to think about while we're, kind of slogging around the trail here, and then, get them prepared to stop when we stop, talk about whatever life situation they want to share. And really the plan was I just want to do the best I could to get the team to kind of anneal quickly and, get people talking, getting to know each other and break that ice.
This whole idea of preparation, of course, physical out here is pretty obvious. You're going to carry a heavy pack over uneven terrain and up steep slopes, and there's going to be areas where there's exposure. Not everybody's bag, I get that. Think about work though. People need to come prepared mentally. That means they need to be competent. They need to know their job. They need to have prepared, done the reading, done the pre-work, whatever that might be. And then emotionally is we need to come to work centered. We've got to take care of what it is ever going on at home, so that when we're here, we can be here and present. We owe that as a duty to the people we're going to participate with. So this preparation, the things I just articulated, are simply expectations. I mean, everything you're doing is hard. As a leader, what we're doing is asking people to do things they otherwise wouldn't do, with commitment and a willing commitment and energy. And so as you look at preparation, you really need to think about, what is the future state that I want? How do I achieve that? How do I make sure the expectations are completely aligned so that when people get out here, they're prepared with a sense of duty to one another? I take you back?
Oh yeah, that was great. The last line that you said was the most important: the sense of duty and responsibility to one another. It was great. Yeah. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And for those that don't know, I mean, I know I have some of my friends and LinkedIn connections. This was like what was it, like a week-long trek through the mountains of Eastern Oregon? And right? Why don't you give a 30-second overview?
Yeah, Waldo. It might have felt like a week. It was 4 days.
Yeah.
And it was in the Wallowa Mountains of Oregon. We've been to Patagonia, Alaska, Moab. We've been desert, alpine, glacier. The only thing we haven't done, I think, is jungle. And every time I go to Costa Rica, I think this would be really cool. And then it's nighttime, and you hear all the critters, all night long, and it's raining.
yeah.
And you're like, oh,
maybe not,
because you can't sleep in the jungle unless you're in a hammock. You cannot sleep on the ground in the jungle, as you well know. But no, we've done this for a long time now. We always pair the executives up with veterans, and it helps the veterans transition to the business world. It helps business people understand the sacrifices that service members have made and their families. And it also provides some insights and really great opportunities to discuss leadership and teamwork. And you know what, Waldo, it's been interesting over the last 10 years. What it always goes back to, I mean, really is, two things. One, you got to slow down to speed up. And two, what's a good life?
Mm-hmm.
And am I living one? It's not like, hey, what's going to make me happy? What's success? It's like, it really boils down to, what is it? And the people that come out there always conclude with, a good life is lived in the service of others. It's like,
Right.
It's not like, hey, I want to pleasure seek all day long. No one comes out of the crucible saying, I want to golf and, ride a bike and, hang out at a beach. They all come out saying, how can I be of service to fellow man, fellow woman, fellow people? And I think that's always really cool.
Yeah, I just put a quote.
I like that.
Leaders lift, talk about lifting each other up. When we were climbing that mountain, a lot of times we were literally lifting each other up or pushing each other to take that step forward each time. But the context, the mental preparation is so key. And you just touched on it. Like the joy that we received out of helping each other and interacting and growing and learning, those spot weld moments. I took a private leadership course years ago, and it's called that spot weld moment. Something that really significantly hit home to you was those firing of synapses of joy that you get when you're helping others, when you really help them overcome themselves. So reminding each other each day that it's not about you. Today, you can go and climb this mountain. And part of the thing with me was that I could get up there pretty fast. I was feeling pretty confident, but part of my preparation as I was leading this group was leading from behind or leading from the side, saying, I don't need to be out front. I'm preparing mentally to be the support wingman. Let those folks who are struggling, who are slower, to be up front and be there with them. So the discipline, the context, the preparation, saying, let me just slow down to speed up. Let me stay in service mode and not be the guy or gal out front, taking out the targets, but supporting is so important. And I think leaders sometimes forget that they need to be the supporting fighter, as we call it, not the engaged fighter.
Yep.
And reminding ourselves every day as we prepare to be that leader, to be the coach, mentor, ambassador of our company is critical.
So this question is from my co-author, Jackie Jordan, and she's asking you, how do you get people to be more than just inspired and motivated by your keynotes and really use them to drive their own preparation for what's to come? Great question, Jackie.
Well, I always ask when even in my speeches and in particular when I coach folks is like, tell me your day.
Mm,
Tell me what you do from the moment that alarm goes off, not necessarily when you get out of bed, because some of us will hit the snooze way too many times or get on our phone or whatever. What are you doing the moment your alarm goes off? And walk me through your day. Tell
mhm.
me how you're preparing this fighter jet called you to go out and be more mission ready, more confident, more skilled, more able to do your job. And so part of the things, once again, has to do with our health and fitness, what we're reading, what's our environment, what's our the steps we take before we hit our cockpit, be it the office or in a board meeting or giving a sales presentation or in a healthcare environment where we're leading men and women to take care of patients, right?
Yeah.
And so if you look at your disciplines, if you look at your habits and rituals before you strap it to your jet, I think you'll find the result of your confidence and your mindset before you do the job. So that's really, really important because it's not, once again, just about passion and motivation, because if you're going to lose the passion when you're flying an 8-hour night combat mission after dodging 4 surface to air missiles like that happened to me, or you're on a deployment, living in a tent, eating meal ready to eat MREs and not getting much sleep and dodging missiles and small arms fire. You're going to lose the passion. You're going to lose the motivation. So you
Yeah.
got to go deep into what is the reason I'm doing this? Who needs me? I call it the why before I fly, the meaning to that mission.
Yeah.
So part of it beyond motivation is tapping into, okay, I'm not motivated, I'm not passionate, I'm not feeling great. Well, what's that next juice to
Yeah.
drive me to take the action, right?
Yep.
Easier
Yeah.
said than done.
Yep. And just real quick, I want to acknowledge Ken Engel, who just sent this in. And Ken, we appreciate you listening and your kind comments. Very nice of you.
I didn't see what he said.
So, the thing I'm thinking about, Waldo, as you talk about that is, the whole idea of preparation. When we go on a crucible, we let people know, hey, this is going to be hard. A little bit of the akin to cold, wet, tired, and hungry. Not everything's going to be great. I just got back from a crucible in Moab with 7 amazing women. And we had one day that was 9 hours in the saddle, 9 hours with a backpack on over rough terrain. It's not, walking. It's up and down and obstacles, and you get the ropes out and your lower packs, your raised packs,
Sure.
it's a whole body workout. It's not just walking. And what was really cool was nobody complained, nobody criticized, nobody condemned. One, because they're amazing humans. But two, I think, when we had the pre-calls where we kind of set the tone that, hey, this is going to be hard and we're going to have to dig deep. And I want you to pay attention to how adversity affects your mind, body, spirit. I want you to pay attention to how others show up. And so, again, I think, oftentimes in the business world, we're going so fast, we just start working. We don't basically say, hey, let's take a step back and really talk about this. In fact, right before we went out and we climbed, we did some climbing on some 100-foot walls, we were very methodical, very slow. And somebody on the trip made the comment like, gosh, this never happens in the business world where we really talk about what we're doing. So, I mean, do you see that we're just running and gunning so often that we're just, we're not taking the time to really prepare. And then we wonder why everybody's burned out, exhausted, frustrated, and they're not bringing, their best when the times are tough.
Yeah. The time to give the feedback and to marinate the stake of the relationship, as I always like to say, is not when you're at 30,000 feet dodging missiles, pulling 9Gs. It's beforehand in the mission briefing, when you're going through training and coaching and mentoring. It's in the preparation. It's in the relationship building. And it really, I kind of think, boils down to culture, individual culture and the environment that you're surrounding yourself in, but your organizational culture. Elizabeth Dole, when she ran the Red Cross, once said, I didn't wait for the rivers to flood before I built relationships. And so part of our job as leaders, as mentors, as coaches, as coworkers with other folks who look differently than us, act differently, different sexualities, different maybe job responsibilities within the ecosystem of our company, is to get to know them, find out about their values, what are their fears, their dreams, be their advocate, and connect with them, because once they believe that you want to help them and they trust you, then when you need them to go that extra mile, to push up the throttle, to work that Sunday at 7 p.m. when the proposal must get out, right? Or we got to work a couple extra hours or go on a deployment and hit the road to see a client, they'll say, hey, I'll do that for Ken Engel because he invested the time. And by the way, Ken's an Annapolis grad and a baseball little league teammate of mine and somebody I've known for many years. A great leader. I need to connect you with him. But so put in the time. Remember, part of preparation is all the work you did before on the human side, the human capital side, and then they'll be less likely to judge you or be defensive or find another excuse not to work hard because they trust you, and you prep that relationship, not just the tactical part of your job.
Yeah. Well, let me throw out a framework, Waldo. See if it resonates again based on your experience with the clients that you serve. Oftentimes, they're strategic. We've got to get squared away strategically as
Right.
preparation. Tactically, as a small team, oftentimes I see 4 items that are really missed as far as talking about. One, and these are going to sound really simple, but to talk about how are we going to communicate? How are we going to use one-way and two-way communication?
Right.
How are we going to meet? How are we going to make decisions? And how are we going to make sure we have healthy debate? Now, those are all really simple things, and I could expound on those in great depth. But often I hear teams that basically say, there's too much time in meetings and there's too much time doing email. Well, email is one-way communication. Meetings often don't have objectives or agendas.
Right.
But we need to, both those tools, meetings and email, are collaboration tools that are not being used very well these days.
Right.
It's not that we don't need to collaborate with people. We're just not doing it very effectively. And I would say it's because we haven't sat down and talked about it and established a set of rules. As a pilot, you always, I'm guessing you almost never didn't use a checklist as you're firing up the engine.
Yep.
So do you see those 4 things, or are there other things you're seeing really missing in preparation because we think, let's just get on with it, on time, under budget?
Oh man, there's a lot to talk about there, but I call it being mission ready in a fighter squad. Your MR, you're mission ready. You show up, you're qualified to go to battle. Just because you're able to fly that F-16 doesn't mean you're ready to go to battle and go to war, right? So you've got to understand the culture, the environment. You've got to go through some preparation and planning and training so that you're able to do the job. But it's always about being relevant and understanding what the mission objectives are before you fly the mission, before you execute. What are we trying to accomplish today? So when we start out our mission briefing, it's like, here's the 3 mission objectives. This is what we're going to do today. We're intentional about it. They're crisp, clear, identifiable points. Everyone understands what the objective is. And then we make sure that we go through it. We don't have time to go through the details of the mission briefing, but part of building that confidence in the communication is always asking, what if? The contingency plans are the ones that can get you shot down. What if we lose an engine? What are the emergency airfields? Do we have a checklist to take care of that fire? What's going to happen if one of us gets shot down on this mission? Who's taking over? We have a succession plan on every mission, and you need to on every business deal. So the what ifs in that preparation piece and how we communicate them is going to be key. And then finally, obviously, if the what if moment, the oh crap moment happens, how are we going to communicate? What's our primary methodology and what are the backups, right? We've got this, we've got email, we got text, but at the end of the day, nothing's better than being able to talk one-on-one, human to human over a phone or whatever, and having a conversation, because conversation, real time, live, kind of gets rid of a lot of the variables and gets straight to the point. So if we were in an emergency, in a combat mission, yeah, we want to stay off the radios, but if worse came to worse, you're talking. This is what I'm doing, even if we're giving the enemy some information. So lots to say there, but you need to know those tools and technologies and those contingencies and how you're going to communicate them.
Well, I think you hit on the key points. In the military, we were really good at establishing contingencies. Where are all the problems? In the business world, not too often do we really do a pre-mortem where we say, hey, it's 6 months from now, we failed, why? But the other part that I think we've learned since the pandemic is, contingency plans are great, but we can't plan for every contingency.
Sure.
So that's where adaptability comes in.
Yeah.
And again, I think, you can prepare for contingencies, but I think you can also prepare to be adaptable.
Sure.
And, sort of a mindset. But part of it is setting an environment where you say to people, you know what, hey, here's the failures that are tolerated, the mistakes, because, we're not going to innovate, grow, be creative if we're not making some mistakes here.
Sure.
I mean, we're not going to be perfect. So, again, flying a fighter jet, you've got to be pretty perfect. But in the business world, I don't think it's always realistic. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, your life isn't on the line when you don't close that deal or execute the proposal properly or do the product launch, right?
Right.
It might be your life and death of your job, your life and death of your future, but it sure as heck is a different mindset when it comes to waking up every day knowing that I must prepare, we must execute. Failure is not an option. So we have a saying in the fighter world: flexibility is the key to air power. Flexibility, like you were talking about, being adaptable, is the key. So we plan our missions with a micrometer. If you could picture a map and a micrometer, we plan them with a micrometer and carve the map with an axe. Because we know the weather's probably going to be different than we planned. We're going to have unanticipated threats. Somebody's going to fall out. We're not going to have the resources, or somebody's radar isn't going to be working. So we plan with a micrometer at the highest level, carve that map with an axe, and then say, okay, we got to be able to be adaptable and flexible. And so part of being adaptable and flexible is knowing the contingencies, knowing the plan, the tools, the resources, the checklists, but also it's that soft skill of listening, reducing your stress, asking for help, being vulnerable, knowing when to take charge as well. And so those soft skills of flexibility in your mindset, not just your hands, is the key to leading through diverse, adverse environments, right? And I think we learned this a lot on the Crucible, where some of the folks who we thought would be kicking butt weren't, and others who stepped out of the zone were really to be able were able to deliver and contribute a lot to the group.
Yeah, we learned a lot about different situations call for different leadership styles.
Right.
One size doesn't fit all. Another comment here from Ken, discussion with colleagues of what are the collective assumptions, constraints of the operating environment, and what are the risks, both to mission success and personnel. And that risk question is interesting. Out on the Crucible, we talked about real risks and perceived risks. That, hey, this looks like, this looks really risky, but if I trip or fall, I'm going to fall to my death. But the real risk was if you trip or fall, you're going to slide, but you're not going to go slide 20 yards and then fall over the cliff. But there's times when it feels like that. And we always talk about, with leaders out there, it's easy to see. It's easy to see if people are scared. But in the business world, especially in a hybrid environment, we have no idea whether people are scared, what the risks are, the fears. And my thoughts are always, the only way to know is to ask people a lot of questions, have a trusting environment, and not make assumptions. And part of it is letting people know it in preparation, right at the beginning. Hey, if you and I can't say, I don't know, I don't understand, I made a mistake to each other.
Sure.
We don't have the right relationship. So we need to establish that right from the get-go.
Yeah, that that competence has to be earned, right? And once again, it boils down a lot to those relationships and the planning that we have on the human side, not just the tactical side, but it does take both, right? I'd rather fly. I always said I'd rather fly with a butthead, a guy I didn't really like, who I wouldn't really want to play poker or baseball with on the weekends, but was always in position, showed up to the mission, briefing, prepared, was able to tactically get the job done. I'd rather have that guy or gal than the one who I liked. So this is really important as well. Avoid being relationship focused and be more mission focused. The mission is about successfully accomplishing the goal, getting everybody back safely, et cetera, closing the deal or whatever. If it's all about the relationship, then you may not be willing to piss somebody off to do the right thing, to have that tough conversation, to really, bruise somebody's ego. Because if the relationship gets in the way, then you're not necessarily doing your squadron good. And that virus is going to impact the rest of the organization. So the mission comes first, not saying that the relationship isn't important, that it's not critical. But if it's all about the relationship, no freaking way. It drives me crazy. It's not all about the relationship.
I've evolved my thinking on that and defined the difference in kind and nice. I think nice, I've come to believe it's a little selfish because it's like, I want to be liked. Well, of course you do. Being kind is I've got to tell people what they need to hear and not necessarily what they want to hear.
Right.
And they might not like me at the moment, but I've got to do what only I can do. I've got this chair that I'm in is a role, and the chair you're in is a role. And we've got to, like you said, accomplish a mission. Waldo, I want to, the concluding part of our chapter on this topic of preparation being squared away, one of the things we wrote was the aim of preparation is to create momentum in a team that is engaged for the challenges to come, committed to the mission, accountable for their mistakes, selfless in their sacrifices, and duty bound to each other. So, again, kudos to Jackie, because as I read that, I'm like, gosh, that sounds pretty good. That must have been Jackie.
Because West Pointers always love to use the word duty.
Yeah.
Army veterans, right? Like you guys.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And again, responsibility, but I do love the word duty because it does, this whole idea that you can't let each other down. And it's kind of like using the word promise instead of commitment. If at the end of the meeting, I say, hey, what are the commitments? Everybody will say, I'm going to follow up. It's easy to break commitments. It's hard to break promises. And again, I think if you say, hey, it's your duty, that carries a different weight than saying, hey, it's your responsibility. But yeah, it is an Army for sure.
Yep.
Waldo, I want to give you the last word on this, and as you're thinking about what you want to say, again, I just want to remind everybody, and Jackie and I talk about this. We loved writing the book. We're glad it's out there. We hope people use it. We don't love pitching the book. We don't love asking people to pre-order, but the reason we wrote it is because we know we can help people, and there's some great lessons there, both and I'm really proud that Jackie and I are both veterans that wrote the book. And I'm also proud that we come from a really different generations.
Yeah.
And I really like that perspective. And the other thing that's a little different is I come at it a little bit more pragmatically based on 4+ decades of experience in the work world. And Jackie really comes at it as a master craftsman and academic and someone who actually taught at West Point. So I think the combined product of it is really something I'm proud of, and I hope people will pick it up and really, if not for themselves, share it with an aspiring leader that you really want to help and mentor. So that's my pitch. But again, Waldo, I'm so proud to know you. I'm just in awe of what you've done with your experiences and how you relate those to audiences and how you do it in an exciting way.
Yeah.
You always bring this tremendous amount of energy. I'm guessing, in order to do that, you've got to have some downtime, because when after you get done with the keynote, you've got to be exhausted.
Yeah.
I mean, and then everybody rushes the stage and wants to shake your hand and get your autograph. But, again, you served in the military, but what's even cooler is you continue to serve your community, our country, the macro economy, and you've helped so many people. And I'm just, again, proud to call you my friend and glad that you came on to talk about this subject. So I promised you, last word.
Well, number one, we've known each other for a long time, and we nurtured our relationship and got to know each other and connected both, on a personal level first, then on a professional level. And I was honored that you invited me on the Crucible with you. For those that are thinking about this book, and I mean it sincerely, there's a lot of tactical skills that Jan and I could teach you, but as you can tell from Jan, and I like to infer with me as well, it's more about those soft skills, how we communicate, our mindset, our presence, our ability to deal with adversity and build resilience. Those are the things that Jan is an expert in. And it's not just this big war kind of combat type of scenario. It's human beings struggling, which is where growth happens, and how other more experienced members who may have been able to deal with adversity, like veterans, can help those. I would invest in the book, but because you're investing in a great human being and somebody who's definitely dug the well personally and professionally. So great to know you, Jan. Proud to be your wingman.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to continuing our relationship and maybe flying another mission.
There you go.
Now that my stem cells are going to be working, man, maybe we need to do, maybe Mount Everest will be the next one. I'm joking.
There you go. All right, Waldo. Well, again, thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of this today.
God bless you, brother. Keep pushing up the throttle.
All right.
Never fly solo.